I'm Dr. Deborah Watson, Advisory Services Team Manager from Innovate UK EDGE. With Innovate UK, we're delighted to be attending the G7 Summit this week, where we are showcasing some of the Southwest's most forward-thinking and innovative businesses. Each of them is delivering on key G7 policy priorities and is working in collaboration with partners in other G7 and guest countries. The G7 Expo in Cornwall is not open to the public this year because of COVID restrictions. But this week, we would like to introduce some of those innovative companies we have been working alongside through a series of webinars. If your business would like to work with us too, subject of course to Innovate UK eligibility criteria, then these webinars provide the opportunity for you to understand more about our comprehensive range of funded support, and we provide details of how to contact us later. On Monday, we started the webinar series Under the Ocean. Today we move into the sky, and I ask a question. How do you combine a new technology with the art of storytelling whilst at the same time creating a long-awaited eco-alternative to fireworks? Well, the answer lies with Celestial Labs, a Southwest company that achieved a combined global audience of some 2 billion people on their debut performance. Their innovation and creativity is truly game-changing. I was one of those 2 billion people, by the way. Joining me today is Natalie Collard, Innovation Specialist with Innovate UK EDGE, and we're delighted to welcome to our conversation Tony Martin, co-founder at Celestial Labs. Good afternoon to you both. So, Tony, if we can come to you first, can you tell us a little more about Celestial, please?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for the invitation. It's great to be here. Yeah, we decided to set up what we call now a drone art company, or a drone display business, right at the beginning of the pandemic, which was incredibly forward-thinking of us, I think. But we managed to muscle through what could have been an incredibly tricky moment in our early history. And as you mentioned, we went on to create some debut shows for Hogmanay for the Scottish Government and a few other notable shows since then. Essentially, my background is in new media technology and strategy, but I have a couple of amazing co-founders, one of whom has a 20-year history in filmmaking, and the other of whom has been at the coalface in terms of developing novel drone technologies. So between us, we've created, as founders, Celestial Labs, and we've managed to coalesce some incredible support from early investors, some amazing enthusiasm from early clients, and a team that we believe is second to none in the world in a very, very short amount of time during a pandemic. And we have to keep pinching ourselves because we don't really know how that happened. But we're incredibly happy it did. It's one of the most exciting companies I've ever been involved in starting and scaling. And it feels to us like this is a wonderful opportunity to steal some carbon back out of the atmosphere that may otherwise be driven by fireworks. And for us to do some novel and innovative storytelling in this absolutely epic medium of the night sky, with some technologies that, from a technology perspective, certainly cross borders, but certainly from a creative perspective, allow things that hitherto have never been seen before.
This air has heather and malt on its breath, and you can't forget the year's goodbyes, the endless waves of the old year sent. We send out hope into this Scottish air, breathed out by widows, workers, wains, by those who care. You ken this night. Here we cry it Hogmanay, a rhyme for the French of L'homme est né, the man is born. So the new year's born, at midnight. There are seeds on the air which will be trees. Choreography on the air, danced by bees. There's old licht made braw by 1 billion stars. The pure white of Venus and the red of Mars.
How does that make you feel to watch it back, Tony?
It's incredibly, it's a mixture of elation and some kind of PTSD, because it was a very, very challenging show to deliver. As you can see, you know, we went to Edinburgh and we spent months talking to in multi-agency meetings. I think we did about 20 or 22 meetings with everyone from the Ministry of Defence through to Scots Police, through to Scots Gov, the Port Authority, and you can imagine, right? And ourselves and our partners for the project Underbelly, we had to bow to unrelenting pressure eventually just to not put this stuff in the public realm. And at that point, I had the bright idea of putting it in the Highlands. And so we decided to put it 13 miles up a lockside on bog. And so we had to build all of that infrastructure so that we could launch, you know, a couple of hundred drones from the side of a loch in the Scottish winter on the northwest of Scotland. And you've got to be crazy. It would have been so much easier to just do it in every location. But, you know, we managed to hone a bunch of different skills, not least of which was just flying the drones in a challenging environment. But we managed to pivot the company somewhat as well. And in these COVID times, a company that was essentially originally intended to be an events company so that people could, you know, stand and gaze up in wonder at this thing happening in front of them. We then pivoted into a kind of event film company. So everything you've seen there, we filmed ourselves, we edited ourselves, and we did all of the post-production ourselves. It meant that we could still tell the story and we could still get out to that Scottish diaspora and beyond that Scottish diaspora. And it meant actually COVID forced our arm, but we ended up having a far higher impact, I think, because we did that. You alluded to the exposure to 2 billion people, which was amazing. We had 8 million views within the first 10 days, 650 news outlets around the world, across 50 territories. And just to give you one illustrative anecdote of the impact that it had on, you know, we had so many emails and messages from people crying. We couldn't believe it. It was a very touching piece, thanks to Jackie Kay, the Scottish Poet Laureate, and Nightworks, the guys that we commissioned the music from, and David Tennant, who you heard there speaking the words of Jackie Kay. But one great story is that we even had a high security prison from South America reach out to us and say, listen, you know, some of the staff have seen this. We want to show it to the inmates. Can you please send us a hard copy so we can play it on a disc, because they don't have internet access, obviously, in a high security jail. And we did that. And then we had, you know, these hardened criminals. We heard stories of those guys bursting into tears as well. So we felt that we nailed it. You know, we had that emotional engagement and impact that we want to have actually with every show subsequently. We set the bar really high, but we think we can do that. We've learned to do it. And whether or not we make a film of it, we feel that we can certainly bring a crowd along with us. No,
absolutely. And as one of your audience for Hogmanay, I certainly would agree with that. It really does work. And I've heard of what you're doing is being called Sky Theatre. And it's not really about the technical as the drones, it's more about the theatre and the storytelling. And that really does come across, I think, with that Hogmanay piece. And from my perspective, I mean, you know, the link into G7 I can make straight from that video, because the Hogmanay, the word, according to the story you told, has French roots. And of course, France is one of the G7 countries. And of course, this year also we have South Korea as a guest country at G7. And I believe you have quite a lot of work with South Korea as part of your business. Could you tell us a little bit about how that international links work for you at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, we shopped around, as you can imagine. After we'd completed our first round of funding, we were in shopping mode, and we needed to go out and acquire some hardware and develop some software and acquire other software. And we originally went to Belgium, where we sourced our first small flock of drones or swarm of drones. We were not as bowled over by that technology as we might have been. However, that technology has turned into a brilliant R&D testbed for us. So, you know, all of those original units have been butchered and modified and challenged in various ways. But we then ended up reaching out to South Korea, to an amazing company called UVFi. And UVFi have a fantastic build quality, and they've since provided us with literally hundreds of drones. We've got a very robust and open commercial relationship with them, and they've been able to, you know, with lead times, when we've been up against it, you know, we've transferred the pressure to those guys, and they've stepped up to the plate. They've always delivered on time, and the technology has been robust, reliable, incident-free, and incredibly safe. And of course, you know, there are all of these safety protocols that we bring to bear on anything that we do, but it's nice to know that you can rely on the hardware. And it was wonderful working with South Koreans to make that a reality. And we're very happy that South Korea is featuring for the first time with the South Korean Premier over at the G7. That feels like a really nice closing of the circle for us.
No, absolutely. So what do you think are the keys to being able to work internationally?
I think that we have benefited overall from having a strong idea that everybody can rally around. So the original founding team, then investors, and then clients. And that extends further out to the international potential for the business as well. So I think that being able to have support from an organization like Innovate allows us to open doors that may not otherwise be available to us, and has allowed little sparks of ideas to germinate and blossom. Because, you know, why shouldn't you work with North Korea, for example? And we're now in a position where we've got other outreach to, you know, we're doing some stuff in the Southern Hemisphere, we're doing some stuff on the West Coast of the US. And it feels that, you know, just being able to say that we are working internationally with partners in Europe, as well as partners in South Korea, and then garnering clients and other commercial opportunities beyond that, everything just seems to be falling in place. And a lot of that is down to the fact that Innovate has been so instrumental in supporting our early efforts.
That's really good to hear, and it's a perfect segue. I mean, I think we've got one of your drones sat in Cornwall with the Innovate UK EDGE stand at the moment, and obviously the support you've been receiving from Innovate UK EDGE, Natalie Collard has been your go-to person. So this is a perfect opportunity to bring Nat into the conversation. Nat, could you tell us a little bit about what a typical support journey looks like for a client, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail about what you've been doing with Celestial.
Yeah, hi everyone. So a typical support journey for me really starts off, I think, getting to know a lot about the client, having a long in-depth conversation, understanding what that team might look like, you know, where are the strengths and weaknesses within that, and listening to them, you know, asking them what are their key challenges. So it's really about building a relationship and saying to them, okay, what are your key challenges? And then again, how I like to operate, we would then sort of dig a bit deeper into that. We'd perhaps work on business model canvas, start to tease out some questions there, really ask them what they believe their value proposition is, see whether that is aligned with the business model canvas, and then use another tool called the growth mapper. So from those three pieces of work, or the tools using those, we can then really look at assigning the best bespoke support for that client. In Tony's case, or in Celestial's case, that was pretty obvious. It was raising the necessary funding and finance, you know, before they could get that in, that they weren't able to sort of really go anywhere. So that absolutely was key. But with other clients, that won't always be the priority. It could be commercialization, it could be sales and marketing. You know, there's a whole host of bespoke services we offer. And then really it's about having that regular check-in, I think, with the client. In the initial stages, like with Tony, we were constantly on the phone because it was really important to ramp up and help him as much as possible. So I was definitely initially weekly, twice weekly, and then as things evolved and he was sort of really working on the pitch deck and raising investment, that was went to more of a sort of a monthly check-in. And then of course sometimes you have a client that we've put down a piece of support, but then as Tony's just said, you might suddenly have to pivot, and so that piece of work or that piece of support might actually change, and it's like, oh, okay, do you know what, actually we really need to address our IP now because we've forgotten about that. So we need to go back and check that because we don't want to release something without absolutely making sure that we've covered our IP. So I think it's also, again, for me, it's about being flexible in my approach with the clients. And then, yeah, I think the benefits are really that long-term piece of work that I work with the client. So it's as I say, it's building that relationship to really understand what are their needs, and that for me is how you get the best results.
I think early on, you know, it really helped for Innovate to support us in making sure that the way we presented our numbers was cohesive and coherent, and that, you know, we were in good shape when we approached our investment community. But as Natalie said, you know, it's an evolving relationship, because now as we continue to innovate in both hardware and software, you know, Natalie is always digging me in the ribs and saying, well, you know, have you done your IP audit yet? And you know, what can we trademark and what can you protect, you know, with patents and so on and so forth. So all of that stuff, that as the business gathers pace, some of those details are left behind. And it's fantastic to have a third party who is interested in the development of the company, who can, you know, nudge you in the ribs, twist your arm, and get you to focus on some of those aspects of the business that are initially deemed to be a lower priority, but that can have a real upside benefit to the business further down the road if taken care of early enough. So it's great to have that kind of support. So
you fully recommend getting on board with Innovate UK EDGE if you have the opportunity as a company?
I do, yeah. You know, we know we had a strong idea. We knew that it was going to be profitable. You know, we're on target to do more than $1 million in revenue in our first year. But there are important bits of detail that would have been left undone had we not engaged, or if Innovate had not engaged with us. And yeah, we totally recommend it for others. It's a fantastic line of support, especially in those early cash-strapped months when you're pre-investment, you're pre-seed. You know, how do you pay for this kind of support without having this structure around you? So yeah, it's been a real pleasure to do, and it's been a real little bit of rocket fuel to the company's progression.
And how did you find working with Nat as your specialist?
It was awful, but it was.
She seems like she was nudging you in the ribs all the time.
Yeah, I know, it's quite abusive. No, she's a fantastic partner and actually feels in many ways to be part of the team. And so working with Natalie has been amazing, and I really do like the fact that she can have her eye on a completely different ball to the one that the senior management might have in the business. Works very well for us, and you know, long may it last.
That's good to hear. It was one of the messages coming out on Monday, actually, the importance of the specialists from Innovate UK EDGE and their network and the innovation ecosystems they bring to a small company that couldn't have that network in their own right because they're busy running their own business.
Yeah,
so I think that ecosystem that Natalie brings to you, that was valued by Art Marine on Monday too. You're running around in circles trying to get stuff done, and the details get left behind. And it's lovely to know that someone's picking up on those details. That's good to hear. So where do you two head next? What's the next plan for you both?
Well, That's interesting. I was just going to lead into that myself and sort of say, well, the next part is doing the IP audit, as Tony has mentioned. So we really need to look at that. And one of the other things he pointed out was the technology. We have identified, looking at some smart grants to apply for to help develop the software. And we're currently looking at whether the Creative Industries Fund will also be a good fit, which we think it will be. So we've got two projects on the go there. So we're not stopping, Tony, are we? We're keeping going. And as he said, it's we see an opportunity, and then, or I might see an opportunity, and then we flag it up and say, Tony, I really think you should be going for this now. And then after we've done that piece of work, it really is looking at a profile and collaboration both in the UK and internationally.
Yeah, I mean, just to underline that, we're moving into a software development phase right now because there are some tools that don't exist yet, and we feel that we're in a good shape now with the experience that we've got under our belts to develop our own tool set there, and we're also continuing to innovate and prototype hardware. So there are some things that are going to be taken to the skies over this next 6 to 12 months that no one will have seen before. And we will be, bringing those things to events near you soon. It's very difficult for us to talk very openly about projects that are coming up, but suffice to say, we have a few very large brands that we're going to be working with in different parts of the world, including the G7. There's a project that's going to be released, I think, tomorrow or the day after for G7 with an amazing high-profile client that is part of the lobbying effort to draw attention to certain issues that we feel the G7 leadership needs to address. So that's going to be very interesting to see. And we've just, as you may know, we've just done Amnesty International's 60th anniversary. That's been an amazing experience. We've just done a major football team's celebratory show. And we have a bunch of other really fantastic things in the pipeline that I really want to be able to talk about, but I really, really can't.
But you're not allowed. So we've got to spot the drones in the sky or spot the footage of them when they fly. I think it's really interesting how the sort of technology and the creativity have to move forward hand in hand. So as you have new creative ideas, you have to bring the technology with it to enable it to enact those performances. So you're having to do both of those things to make them move. And I think that's really interesting. The one thing we haven't touched on yet is this replacement for fireworks line. So obviously G7 is very much around the environment this year, and it's one of the key themes. Could you tell us a little bit about how that's panning out and how you can use the displays you're putting together for environmental purposes?
Yeah, I mean, one of the ethical underpinnings of the business is that we want to supersede fireworks. We want to enable crowds to still get that ooh and ah, response as they look into the night sky, but we want to do that without, dumping tons of carbon into the atmosphere and tons of heavy metals into the ground beneath. And so we feel very strongly that we can supplant fireworks. It's no disrespect to fireworks companies, they do an amazing job, and I enjoy watching that stuff as much as the next person. But we do feel very strongly that there needs to be a carbon neutral alternative. And we do think that we're part of that evolution. And we want to continue to promote, that part of the business very aggressively. But as I said, it's not just about being a replacement for fireworks. It's about, having this huge canvas, 3D canvas of the night sky into which you can tell stories and actually give crucial life-saving information. One of our launch divisions is called Human Support, and we are using our technology to put digital signage into the night sky that can steer people in need away from danger and towards safety. Now, that could be people in the Mexican desert who are dying of thirst because they don't know where water supplies are, and we can signpost those water supplies. It could be a forest fire evacuation protocol where we're steering people to the safest route out of somewhere. Or it could be, allowing refugees to know when there's going to be an aid drop. all of those things, you know, moving away from the frivolous and entertainment side of the business, we feel there's a real need to leverage this technology in favor of humanitarian aims as well.
Absolutely, and that's a really nice sort of whole story to tell, actually, isn't it? It's how the work you're doing around the storytelling and the creative side for entertainment can actually have a really serious purpose in the humanitarian sphere as well. And I think that's really interesting. I'm aware of the fact we're very rapidly coming to the close of our time. And I did promise we'd open to the audience for any questions. So if anyone's got any questions, please do stick them in the chat very rapidly, because we'll be drawing to a close quite soon. From my perspective, it's not been that long that you've been working with us. It's not been that long that you've existed as a company. I think it's really good that we've been able to build this relationship, and there's that ongoing plan of action to help keep you launching drones into the sky to tell these stories. And I'm glad to say that Innovate UK EDGE has been part of your story.
Yeah, us too. So yeah, we're a very big thank you from Celestial to Innovate EDGE. It's been a great starting position, and long may the journey continue.
Lovely, thank you very much for that. I haven't got any questions coming in the chat, so people have missed their opportunity to ask questions. So it just leaves me to say a really big thank you to both of you. Is there anything else you would like to tell the world before I head off into my closing spiel?
Well, stand by. There are some really big shows coming up, especially for G7. In the next 48 hours, you'll see some beautiful content across the screens and across all of the social media channels. So we hope you enjoy that.